one of the worst teams in world football has quietly and dramatically improved. In March 2024, Luxembourg could qualify for their first ever international tournament. So, how did a tiny country in Europe find itself on the brink of a footballing miracle? "2006 was especially bad for the Luxembourg men's football team. The Red Lions, as they're known, played 10 games, losing 8, including a 7-0 thrashing to Germany in a friendly in Freiburg. They did not score a single goal. In fact, up to that point, they had not won a game in over a decade, a winless stretch going back a record 83 matches. As 2006 ended, FIFA released their world rankings. Luxembourg had sunk to their lowest ever level, 195th out of 205 teams. Just one place above Montserrat, a Caribbean island that had been destroyed by a volcano 10 years before, and American Samoa, a team that held the world record for the worst ever international loss after being beaten 31-0 by Australia. Luxembourg were officially one of the worst teams in the history of international football. But fast forward 18 years, and Luxembourg is on the verge of qualifying for a European Championship. A stunning campaign for Euro 2024 saw them finish third in the group, above recent World Cup qualifiers Iceland and Bosnia, after a string of shock victories. Luxembourg now face a playoff against Georgia in Tbilisi on March the 21st. They are just 2 wins away from qualifying for their first ever major tournament. So, how did they turn it around? Well, the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg is a tiny, wealthy and landlocked country wedged between Belgium, Germany and France. It's a little over 900 square miles in size, around the same area as Moscow. But whilst 12.6 million people live in the Russian capital, the population of Luxembourg is just over 600,000. The Grand Duchy has one of the oldest football leagues in Europe, starting in 1909. The national team played in 4 Olympic Games, even making it past the preliminary stage twice. They also almost qualified for the 1964 European Championship, then called the Nations Cup. And that near miss was pretty much the last good news for Luxembourgish football. As the football world developed, football teams from Luxembourg, both international and domestic, went on a dismal 4-decade run. Some lowlights include the 1965 European Cup, where Stade de Lange lost 18-0 on aggregate to Benfica. Worse was the 1971 Cup Winners' Cup, where Chelsea were drawn against Jeunesse Girage, an amateur 3rd division side from a village of 500 people, who had somehow won the Luxembourg Cup with a team including 4 brothers, a 41-year-old striker and a one-armed midfielder. They lost 21-0 on aggregate, which is still a European record. Shortly after England thrashed them 9-0 at Wembley in 1982, long-time international Paul Philippe retired. 2 years later, he became coach and was in charge for the next 2 decades. And it was when he finally became president of the Luxembourgish Football Association that things really started to change. Realising that the Luxembourg League, given its size, could never compete with the countries around it, a new approach was taken. A new national youth academy in Montague was opened in 2000. And when Philippe became president 4 years later, he instituted a countrywide talent search to identify the best young players. The best 409-year-olds are now nurtured in regional centres alongside their school commitments. Luxembourg has poured resources into the game and is now seeing results. Philippe has encouraged developing players to leave the country too. It's a similar model to that of Iceland, another tiny country that invested in facilities and coaching for young players and who managed to qualify for the 2018 World Cup finals, despite having half the population of Luxembourg. But their model also understood that to get the best results, young talent had to move to better leagues. It was quicker to professionalise the players than to professionalise the whole domestic league. We're a village. We know that we're never going to be world champions. I think our fans see us getting better and better over the last few years and expect it's going to keep getting better. But it's easier at the beginning to make big steps, Philippe told the Irish Times. We are small and we will always be small. Although the talent pool has been expanded somewhat by changing demographics. Luxembourg's wealth has seen its population nearly double since 1991. Half the population are foreigners. Now there are players born in Luxembourg with roots in Cape Verde, Portugal, Indonesia and beyond. And the current team is full of players signed to top professional teams across Europe. Only one player in the last squad that faced Liechtenstein in the Euro 2024 qualifiers actually played in Luxembourg. Goalkeeper Anthony Morris plays for Union Saint-Gilloise in Belgium. Current top scorer Gerson Rodriguez has played in Ukraine, Turkey, Moldova, and now plays for Slovan Bratislava. The three Till brothers, Sebastian, Oliver, and Vincent, play respectively in Poland, Ukraine, and Azerbaijan. Leandro Barrero is a regular at Mainz. The rest play in the Netherlands, Germany, Italy, France, and Austria, to name a few. But that doesn't mean that the domestic league isn't thriving. F9 Montague has dominated since they were formed in 1999, winning 16 titles. And they made history when they reached the UEFA Europa League group stage in 2019. They were the first Luxembourg team to do so. But of course, qualifying for a major international tournament is a very different challenge. And one of the biggest changes has been the advent of UEFA's Nations League in 2018. National teams are banded by ability and placed in groups A to D. Performance judges whether you move up a group to face better opponents or down to play teams more on your level. UEFA also brought in a playoff route to the European Championship finals for smaller teams or bigger teams who are having bad runs of games. In the delayed Euro 2020 finals, North Macedonia qualified via this route. And in March, Luxembourg could do the same. If they beat Georgia, they face either Kazakhstan or Greece. And if they qualify, it would rival Iceland's achievement, perhaps even surpass it. From one of the worst teams in the world to one of the best in Europe. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. With the latest transfer news and insight on every Premier League football story that matters, theathletic.com puts you inside football. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.